This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Giduyot. It's Friday, December 6th. This is Africa 54.
The World Food Programme struggles to make up a $200 million shortfall as food insecurity rises in Zimbabwe. A Nigeria healing project uses creative arts to help people improve their physical and mental health. And Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives are set to draft articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump.
Tonight, we begin in East Africa, where Kenyans are again mourning the loss of loved ones following another structure collapse. Nairobi police say at least 3 people were killed and 27 others were injured and rushed to a hospital on Friday when a residential building crumbled into a pile of rubble. Throughout the day, rescue workers struggled to free a woman who could be heard screaming from under the twisted concrete and steel rods. The Kenya Red Cross says at least 11 people had been rescued from the debris by late afternoon, some 5 hours after the 6-story building first crumbled. Officials say they are unclear how many people had been inside the building. In 2016, 49 people died in a similar Kenyan building collapse tragedy. The United Nations World Food Programme says it is struggling to raise more than $200 million to ease food insecurity in Zimbabwe. Economic collapse and recurring droughts have left the Southern African nation's 5.5 million people without enough food to eat. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare.
Maria Gunzi is tilling her land as Zimbabwe's rainy season begins. But Gunzi, a 66-year-old widow, worries her family will not have enough food.
Hunger and poverty are real here. I do not even have fertilizer for the land I am preparing. All my crops were burnt by the sun last season, and there's no food aid coming. These wild fruits are not getting buyers. People are broke. I wish the government would chip in with assistance, especially for us, the old. Hunger is giving me a real headache.
Gunzi hopes that these wild fruits will sell so that she can afford to crush a half bucket of corn she got from well-wishers last month and to buy some cooking oil for her dried vegetables. Gunzi is among the 5.5 million people in Zimbabwe who the World Food Programme says are food insecure until at least next April because of the collapsed economy and the recurring droughts.
For us, we look at the severity of the situation and coupled with the fact that the forecast for this 2019-2020 agricultural season is also not good. It is almost similar to last year's forecast. We reckon that we would be in for a long run.
WFP says Zambia, from where the UN agency would import food to ease Zimbabwe's situation, is also affected by drought and has imposed a ban on corn exports. Also, the agency says it needs to raise more money to help Zimbabwe.
We are running against time because we need to have these commodities in country by January. For us to implement this program at scale, reaching 4.1 million people from January up to April, and then 1.5 May and June, it would cost us a total of $293 million. We've only received 30% of that, meaning that we have a funding gap of $211 million.
Rowe maintains hope international donors will chip in to assist Zimbabwe, though he knows the country is competing for funds with emergency situations in war-torn places like Yemen, Sudan, and Somalia. Any aid would be a relief to Maria Gunzi, who says climate change has affected her as she used to be able to fend for herself. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
Updating a story we first told you about Thursday, the death toll has risen from 58 to at least 62, including several children, when a boat carrying more than 150 migrants capsized in the Atlantic Ocean off the West African nation of Mauritania, according to the United Nations Migrant Agency. The International Organization for Migration says 83 survivors managed to swim to shore after their boat capsized after hitting a rock in rough seas Wednesday. At least 10 survivors were hospitalized. Mauritania's Interior Ministry says the migrants were mostly immigrants trying to reach Spain, coming from Banjul, Gambia. The migrants had been trying to reach Spain after departing from Gambia on November 27th. Burundi's ruling party Youth League is forcing citizens to donate money to fund next year's election, according to a Human Rights Watch report released on Friday. Fears of abuses and renewed violence appears to be growing ahead of the May 2020 vote. In its report, Human Rights Watch revealed that Youth League members are extorting citizens for cash and food ranging in value from $1 to more than $500 to finance the next year's poll. The government announced in 2017 it would collect, quote, voluntary contributions from citizens in several ways, including as deductions from civil servants and other public worker salaries. The report also found that for years, the Imbonerakure, the ruling party's youth wing, often used violence, intimidation, and road checkpoints to collect funds. Now, for more on these findings, I'm joined live via Skype from Vermont by Louise Marge, the Central Africa Director for Human Rights Watch. Louise, welcome to Africa 54. All right, I understand we have lost Louise. Hopefully we'll get him back. And moving on, a project in Nigeria is using the creative arts to help people suffering from chronic illness, such as sickle cell, improve their emotional health. Each week, participants are encouraged to engage in music, art, and dance therapy sessions, as well as mingle with people facing similar challenges. We get more in this report by Channels Television in Nigeria.
Art therapy is rooted in the idea that creative expression can foster healing and mental well-being. In Lagos, Nigeria's commercial city, a painting project provides art therapy for people living with various chronic illnesses such as sickle cell and cancer. The participants and their caregivers engage in art and music sessions alongside their regular treatments during visits to Sickle Cell Foundation offices in the city. The activity requires teamwork and is meant to also promote engagement and interaction among participants. Peter Oshokoya has sickle cell disease, an inherited blood disorder that affects red blood cells with attendant episodes of pain and organ damage. He often visits the center to participate in the sessions.
It's therapeutic for me because it's fun. It gives you the ability to be creative when you're doing arts. Because art itself is, I won't just say creative, it brings out the best in you. That's what art does.
The program is run by a local non-governmental organization with support from various partners in the country and abroad. The organization works with children and youths living with cancer, sickle cell disease, Down syndrome and autism, amongst many other health conditions.
We understand that the arts has a role with almost everybody's healing. So it's not like we're just choosing one type of person to work with. We just really are working with people who are currently facing illness or sickness and who need something.
The program is also meant to help build relationships between patients, caregivers, and healthcare workers. Oyidamola Fakia is the director of the Arts in Medicine program.
When patients are involved in art, not just as a therapy, but if just their environment alone is you put art everywhere.
Artists are invited to volunteer their services and hold performances once a week at hospitals and at the Sickle Cell Foundation Center. The project has benefited over 15,000 patients, caregivers and healthcare workers in Nigeria, Ghana and South Africa.
Our thanks to Channels Television in Nigeria for that report. Now, we just mentioned that Burundi's ruling party, Youth League, is forcing citizens to donate money to fund next year's election. This is according to a report by Human Rights Watch. And for more on this story, I'm joined live from Vermont by Louise Marge, the Central Africa Director for Human Rights Watch. Louise, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what were some of the major findings from your investigations?
Well, this report documents abuses linked to contributions to next year's elections in Burundi. These will be a general election, but they will also have the presidential vote. This is a contentious vote. Your viewers might remember in 2015, the current president, Pierre Nkurunziza, won an election that was considered very controversial. He was the only candidate because he had a new term. This time around, there's been serious abuses coming up to this vote. And the government has decided to force its own people to pay for this vote. And this is being driven by and managed by, outside the capital, by the Imbonerakure. This is a youth league tied to the ruling party, the party of Pierre Nkurunziza. And this is a youth league that has absolutely no authority, no mandate to be exerting pressure and to be coercing people to pay for what is a state project.
So, Louise, Pierre Nkurunziza is now said to have told the media there that he is not going to be running again. So what do you foresee in the May 2020 presidential election?
Well, I think it's important to note that if Nkurunziza may not run again, he may very well. This is presidents in the region, such as Museveni, such as Kagame, have said in the past that they're not going to run again, and then they turn around and change their minds, and they do. But it doesn't really matter if Nkurunziza runs. What we're seeing now is the complete political control of this political space by the CNDD-FDD, the ruling party. So while the individual himself, even if he does not run, I have absolutely no doubt, and we at HRW have no doubt, that the CNDD-FDD will really fight to control that space. I think what's worrying to us is that the CNDD-FDD, the ruling party, is now looking more to these youth militias. They're looking more to the Imbonerakure to be their enforcers rather than allowing state agents with a mandate to have security, to control space, who have the ability to coerce people under the government, under the Constitution, such as the police, such as the army. We're seeing them take much more of a backseat, and the Imbonerakure taking much more of a leading role.
Now, I just learned a few minutes ago that Human Rights Minister in Burundi, Martin Nvyabandi, has dismissed human rights findings on this report. What's your response?
My response is this to the minister. My response would be this to the entire government of Burundi. You can dismiss this, but please just let us in. Let us in to do our work, or let the UN in. Let me remind your viewers that the UN human rights body, OHCHR, its office was closed down earlier this year. There's a commission of inquiry on the situation in Burundi mandated by the human rights body at the UN. It's in its third year of running. To date, they've never actually put a finger or a toe on the soil of Burundi. There's an ICC investigation into the situation in Burundi, into crimes that were committed in 2015, and the ICC is not allowed into Burundi. Burundi continues to deny that anything is happening, while simultaneously they don't let any type of watchdog group or any type of independent body, whether it be an NGO or whether it be the UN, into there.
Thank you very much for your perspective on what's going on in Burundi. Louise Marge is the Human Rights Watch as Central Africa Director. And we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the latest in the impeachment proceedings against U.S. President Donald Trump. We'll be back.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Described as a banana on steroids, NSET may be the superfood you've never heard of, let alone tasted. But scientists say it could be a lifesaver for a warming world, as the plant is said to be very drought tolerant. The plant, which grows up to 10 meters, is a staple for the 20 million people who turn it into bread and porridge, construction materials, packaging, cattle feed, and medicine. Although NSET grows wild from Ethiopia down to South Africa, it has only been domesticated in the Ethiopian highlands, which is mystifying researchers. Scientists who are now DNA sequencing hundreds of varieties hope NSET can boost food security in other countries, such as Zambia and Malawi. Next up, foie gras, literally translated in French, is fatty liver. French scientists now are developing a naturally fatty version that does not employ the traditional technique of force feeding in order to appeal to countries where production methods are tightly regulated. Scientists are developing a process that stimulates the buildup of fat in geese and produces naturally fat liver without having to thrust feeding tubes into their gullet. The alternative foie gras will be much more expensive for food lovers. While traditional foie gras is sold for about 300 to 400 euros per kilo, the same amount of the other version could reach prices up to 1,000 euros. And finally, the days of finding seeds in your drink could be over, thanks to the arrival of the seedless lemon. A new variety of premium natural seedless, non-GMO lemons are now available on store shelves in the U.S. Limited seasonal production is now available until May 2020. Scientists found that if we subject vegetative material of citrus varieties to gamma rays, one of the changes that may evolve eventually is that the fruit will be seedless. No chromosomes or genetic material are exchanged or inserted. And that's what's trending today.
In a historic visit to the United States, the new Prime Minister of Sudan, Abdalla Hamdok, says his country's model of transition is a work in progress. At the Atlantic Council, a foreign policy think tank here in Washington, Hamdok was asked how he is managing to implement policies with the military and civilian elements during his transitional period.
We are thinking on our feet. With all the challenges, we decided we will do it. If you look at our transitional government structures, we managed to establish 2. Sovereign Council at the Cabinet. We are yet to establish the Legislative Council. We didn't wait like other places in the world for an agreement that will be polished in Oslo, in Rome, in London, or further down in Washington. It was homegrown. It's all the challenges. But we are very determined as Sudanese to make it work. That model brought together, it's a compromise. So there is no actually time lost to begin to call it is civilian or it is military. It came about because of the understanding and the agreement between the 2 sides. So essentially it's a compromise, historical compromise that allows us to stop the bloodshed and define new dispensation and dawn for our country.
That was Sudan's new Prime Minister, Abdalla Hamdok, speaking at the Atlantic Council here in Washington. Now, Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives are poised to begin drafting articles of impeachment with the goal of removing President Donald Trump from office. As the impeachment battle intensifies, both sides are keeping a close watch on public opinion polls. VOA's Jim Malone has more.
Good morning.
House Speaker Pelosi made the historic announcement at the Capitol.
With allegiance to our founders and a heart full of love for America, today I am asking our chairman to proceed with articles of impeachment.
The House Committee on the Judiciary will come to order.
The move comes after weeks of House hearings on allegations that the president abused his power by pressuring Ukraine to announce an investigation into political rival Joe Biden, the leading Democratic presidential contender.
Our democracy is what is at stake. The president leaves us no choice but to act, because he is trying to corrupt, once again, the election for his own benefit.
Republicans remain loyal defenders of the president, including House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
This is the day the nation is weaker, because they surely cannot put their animosity or their fear of losing an election in the future in front of all the other things that the American people want.
Trump has returned from the NATO summit, where he kept up his attacks on the impeachment effort.
The impeachment hoax is going nowhere. The Republican Party has never been so unified as it is right now. I have never seen anything like it.
Public support for Trump's impeachment and removal from office has grown since the probe began in September and remains at about 50%. Overall, the country remains split on whether to remove the president from office, with passionate views on both sides.
He's guilty. He should be out. He should have been impeached a long time ago for everything else he did.
I am against the impeachment. I think it's ridiculous. I think they've been going after Trump ever since before he got inaugurated.
Can you remark?
Analysts note that the recent weeks of public hearings have done little to shift public opinion, including Vanderbilt University expert Thomas Schwartz.
What I have observed is that there's no real detectable change in the public opinion polls as to the president's favorability or his job approval. And so it doesn't seem to have, as the cliche goes, moved the needle at all on his overall standing.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
In 1974, then-President Richard Nixon resigned from office after many Republicans deserted him over the Watergate scandal. But given the deep-seated political polarization in the U.S. today, building a bipartisan consensus is difficult, says Susan Lowe Block.
Well, it's definitely a very polarized age. And the other thing that's different from Nixon is we have polarized networks. So we have, not everyone believes the same facts. The public is divided as to facts, and that's a very serious problem.
Democrats are moving to hold an impeachment vote in the House by the end of the year. That would lead to a trial in the Republican-held Senate, where a two-thirds majority vote is required for removal from office, a prospect analysts find unlikely at the moment. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
It's time for our weekly entertainment segment, and we now present the Africa 54 Song of the Week by Gabonese artist Chanel in this song, Yaya Yobe.
All right, it's time for Song of the Week. I'm Heather Maxwell.
Mr. Asante here for you.
And today we have the song called Yaya Yobe, and it's by singer Chanel Lakinda. Le feu, le feu, le feu. Lakinda. What do you think, Kwame?
I like her voice, one, and I like the fact that she raps and she sings. So it adds to, you know, that multifacet of that whole artistry she has.
Yes. And also, you know, she's singing in French, and I like what she's singing about because she's singing about God, and she's saying, you know, it's all because of you. Everything I do, all my successes, getting over problems, being patient, it's all you. And we'll see later. Dance, let's dance. And you see this gorgeous traditional dance. One thing I wanted to say about her, Chanel, she is really at the top of her game right now in Gabon, and she is nominated, or is a nominee for the Best Female Artist. So that was Chanel Lakinda.
With her beautiful singing and rapping and everything in between.
The song was called Yayobe, and that was Song of the Week. Yeah.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.